Parents, when did you realize your kid might be terminally stupid? My mom says, when you ate sand and dog food. She's right, I did this a lot. My brother was cooking top ramen, and he had seen us either cook it in the microwave or in a pot on the stove, so he naturally put it in the metal pot and put the whole thing in the microwave. It was pretty bad. He was 15 at the time. My son cooked a package of ramen in the microwave but didn't realize you had to add water. Set the microwave on fire. When I was 9 or so, my big brother said that I couldn't karate chop a 2x4 in half. On edge, I promptly chopped the 2-inch edge so hard I broke my hand. Then I didn't tell my mom for a week until my hand turned black. It's still not right. Don't let your kids watch ninja movies. I can only imagine how your mother felt when she discovered that your hand had turned black. The one time my son came into the house from the backyard and loudly declared, "I'm going to sit like this," with his hand covering his forehead. When we finally convinced him to move his hand, we discovered he was covering a huge goose egg that was already turning black and blue. Turns out, he took the rubber mallet and hit the volleyball as hard as he could, thinking it would pop. Spoiler alert, it didn't pop. We were grateful he didn't use the claw hammer. I'm going to sit like this freaking classic. My 3-year-old went up to a trash can in Sam's Club and just started licking the top of it. There wasn't anything sweet on it, just he wanted to lick it. I had high hopes that boy would make something of himself, but that was the first moment that reality sunk in. Don't worry. 3-year-old boys do some really dumb crap. I once had to physically restrain my 3-year-old son from licking a public toilet. They have terrible impulse control. You may be just fine with yours. Mommy, want to see a trick? Sure honey, show me a trick. Kid runs around in circles and then smacks head first into a wall. A good trick. Sweetie, this is my contribution to humanity's future. My 8-year-old was firmly convinced that the Queen of England is a myth, like Bigfoot or fricking Chupacabras. Just wait till the 5th of January. My little brother used to enter into meaninglessly stupid bets with his friend. Once, they bet that they could withstand more slaps than the other. They stood there slapping each other in the face for 20 minutes until one gave up. Another, they bet they could shake hands longer than the other. This was at Disney World. They went on for about 2 days. They slept together. They pooped together. Another time they bet who could eat more sand. They swallowed it. Each had several handfuls. I don't know how they survived childhood. When I spoke the words "don't lick the headlights." When I had to explain to my 18-year-old that pork and chicken are not the same thing as he was putting groceries in the freezer. Funny story about this. I used to call every meat chicken for an embarrassingly long time. 14-15. And when my mom finally corrected me, she told me that she used to call everything chicken when I was younger so I would eat it. Now I wonder if I've ever egregiously called pork chicken in public or among friends. My daughter got a sheet of Happy Bunny keyboard stickers. Cute, colorful stickers that you can put on top of each keyboard key to give your keyboard extra flair. She decided to place them alphabetical order instead of in the QWERTY arrangement because she figured it would make typing easier if the keys were in alphabetic order. Years ago, my little brother, about 5 at the time, and I were left home alone. I figured he was okay watching TV and drinking his juice box, so I went upstairs. All of a sudden, I hear him screaming. I rush downstairs to see him freaking out and blood gushing from his nose. What happened? Barely coherent. Through tears, I stuck the straw up my nose and it got stuck and I tried to get it out with this pencil. He was eventually fine, but Jesus Christ. Self-lobotomy. Nice. Mother drove me to the ER while calling poison control when I was 6 because I superglued my teeth together. I accidentally superglued my tongue once. Do not recommend. There was a plug of dried glue clogging the end of the tube, and I was trying to bite it off so I could use the glue. Just asked my mom. She answered, "You fell into a cooler full of live lobsters. If not for rubber bands, you would have been natural selected." When preschool teacher asked my then 4.5-year-old son what he wanted to be when he grew up for their graduation photo, I got back a photo of him holding a card that said a chicken. Lol, I wanted to be a bumblebee when I was 5. My summer camp gave me an award for that. When my son was 8ish, He took a can of hairspray and purposely sprayed his eyes to see if it hurt. After 20 minutes of screaming, crying, and splashing water in his eyes, he can finally see again, so he sprays himself again to see if it would hurt the second time. Science is all about being able to replicate results. When they were 4 and briefly disappeared at preschool, their teacher found them in the cupboard where the naptime blankets were kept, with their heads in the plastic bags with their blankets. Could have lost both my dumbass kids that day if they'd had time to fall asleep. That last sentence gave me a chuckle. I can imagine your tone. This may have been me at one point in my life. When I was very young, either kindergarten or first grade, I asked my mother about death. I knew that everyone died, but I wanted to know when I would die. My mother kindly told me that everyone's life has a timer, but we cannot know for certain exactly when ours will expire. I thought about this for a little bit, and the thing that kept coming to mind was our little kitchen timer. This little timer only went up to 99 minutes. My young mind came to the conclusion that I had at most 99 minutes to live, because a timer could not possibly go any higher than that. I was not entirely sure how long 99 minutes was, but I was absolutely sure that I would die that day. That night, being afraid to go to sleep, my parents asked what was up. When I told them, they laughed and calmly explained that some timers go longer than 99 minutes, and that it was safe to go to bed. It was me, actually. I found a spray can when I was 6, proceeded to spray paint my name on the wall of our house. Realized my parents would figure out I was the culprit, so I added my sister's name twice. She was too young to know how to write. Also, my mom was at home and found me still holding the can a minute later. Fell off the bike, broke her helmet, and had to go to the hospital. She was going 0 miles per hour. I snapped my wrist clean at the age of 10 trying to balance on a razor scooter. I feel that 0 miles per hour thing in my bones. Literally. My parents had a lot of moments like this with me. Apparently, it was more of a surprise since I'm the youngest of 3, and my father least cautious. I needed 3 sets of stitches within a 3-month span when I was 4 years old. I'm the only one of my siblings who ever needed stitches. All of the stitches were on my face. My dad was making candied apples. He set the molten candy down out of our reach and told us not to touch it because it was hot. In the 2 seconds he turned around, I'd managed to jump up and plunge my hand into it. I was 3. On more than one occasion I jumped or attempted to jump out of watercraft to test the life preserver. This was when I was 4-7. My parents know the best ways of removing both cooked and uncooked pasta from a child's nose and ears thanks to me. I was 5-6. There are others. I guess I turned out okay. I managed to finish a PhD and have been supporting myself. I asked my dad and he said, when you decided to make a YouTube video about how to jump from trees and broke your wrist. In my defense, I was like 8 and wanted to be a stuntman. Project Badass. My parents took me to the O when I was like 3 for shoving a rock up my nose that they could not get out. I proceeded to get home, somehow find another rock inside, and wedge that crap right up there again. My brother drank a Coke with a bee buzzing inside, had to go to doctor to get a doodle bug out of his ear, threw an open umbrella up in the sky and watched it come down right into his eye, point side down. Nice dent for a while on his eye, and then later threw same metal umbrella onto the power lines, knocking out transformer and electricity to whole block. After that, every time the electricity even blinked, my mom would ask where my brother was. One of my brothers is light speed stupid, like twice as stupid as the rest of us. One time he bought a tube of dog food, cooked it up, and ate it on a sandwich because he thought it was bologna. Then there was the time he got arrested for doing burnouts in his first car he'd had for 1 hour. Then there was another time we had to call the fire department because he got stuck in a tree. At age 15. Cut to 3 months ago when he comes home with an IQ test he sat with his psychiatrist and scored in the 99th percentile on. We have absolutely no clue how the frick he managed that. You can have a high IQ and still be an idiot. Not a parent but me. I wanted to see if the cigarette lighter in the car was hot when you took it out, so I put it on my lips to test it. It was hot to say the least. Burst into tears when my mom asked if I wanted an ice cream sundae because it's not Sunday. When she ate a dandelion then realized it tasted awful and cried because it tasted so bad. 3 times more after the first time. Or when she trapped herself in the chicken coop 2 days in a row. She was pretty traumatized the first time, and then the second time too. Although she is smart enough to have skipped a grade and does incredibly well in school. Maybe she's just a scientist and is making sure her results are reproducible. When he karate chopped the trash because he could not lift the trash bag out of it, and managed to cut one finger nearly off, requiring an emergency room visit at the age of 5. He knew there was a broken glass in. He'd just cleaned it up. It was his 3rd visit that month, 2nd visit that week. Yeesh. Be prepared to support that one a little longer than 18 years. I don't know how many times I've had to say don't brush your dong. That's for your teeth. Or that's not a noodle, spoiler, it's a worm. It took me a minute to realize you weren't still talking about his dong. First time my son was given a hot dog in a bun for lunch. 7. He instinctively picked it up and bit into the side of it, like a slice of watermelon. WTF. We've been concerned ever since. Not my kid, my cousin. He has a ton of these moments, but this is by far the funniest. I was cleaning my dog's ear and she was laying down on my bed. So I soaked a cotton ball with the ear solution, popped it in her ear and massaged it. He went, "Wouldn't you wet your bed if she's laying down like that?" I was so confused, so I was just staring at him. He continued, "Like when the liquid flows out from her other ear." No, that'd only happen if I put it in your ear. My kid was blowing raspberries the other day, but he forgot to open his mouth. So he ran out of breath, gasped, and then barfed on me. I mean, he's 5 months old, but come on. Kid's doomed. OMG, ha 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 ha. Other animals come out the womb and can walk immediately, prance, eat just fine, etc. Then there's humans, who do this crap. Left an unwrapped stick of butter on a plate to soften. Boy later tells me to buy that cheese again because it was so good. He ate the entire stick. Update. Thank you so much for all the responses, upvotes, and gold silver. I could start to subreddit on the stupidity of my son, as my comment on this thread barely scratched the surface. Thanks again. My nephew will do the same thing if he ever has access to butter. I think it's pretty common for kids. He also eats all my chapstick though. That's probably not normal. What can I say? The time I played with 2 really strong magnets and my balls. It was those kind of magnets that are almost inseparable when together. Let's just say I screamed quite loudly. I just wanted to see if they could still attract each other even with some skin and mystery balls in between them. I am a woman, but this made me cringe and squeeze my thighs together just thinking about that. When I was 3 years old, I was at daycare. We didn't have these fancy things you put in electric sockets nowadays to keep kids' fingers out, so the daycare just had duct tape over them. I asked the carer why there was duct tape over the sockets, and she explained it as there's these mean little bugs in there that can hurt you, so it's to keep them from coming out. As a very empathetic little kid, I got worried that the poor little bugs couldn't breathe in there. So I decided to take a needle and start poking holes in the duct tape that was covering the socket. I had done maybe 2 or 3 of them when I felt someone grab me and throw me back. I was terrified because I thought I had been caught and I was in trouble. I looked back and there was no one there. I now know I got electrocuted and launched back. When I was a kid, I stuck my finger in an electrical socket and got shocked. I started screaming I got stung by a bee. After not finding a bee, my parents asked what I was doing and figured it out. Not a parent, but he's my brother. I had to tell him stop licking the pig's nose. He was 10. I don't know if your edit makes this better or worse. 17-18 years old son was going to barbecue for some friends and caught him whacking at the propane tank's valve with a hammer to loosen it before changing out the tank. Shame. Party could have been a blast. When my son was about 3, my wife was boiling some water on the stove. He was told repeatedly do not touch the stove ever, but what 3-year-old listens to that? And she stepped out of the room for 10 seconds to check on the other one in the house. He must be the Flash, because in those 10 seconds he had pushed a chair into exactly the perfect position, climbed it, and poured that water on top of himself. Lucky for him it hadn't gotten up to boiling yet and wasn't enough to really burn him. He was more surprised than anything else. Another time, Same kid slightly older came running up to me with a big gash on his forehead and said, "Daddy, I was doing something awesome and I hurt myself." I couldn't help it but I involuntarily laughed out loud. Boy was he embarrassed. Well, the water one could have been Suaru bad. Dang. Not necessarily stupid, but more of a raging psychopath. Ever since this little guy could eat solid food, his favorite meal has been barbecued ribs. I mean, he'll eat them every day if he could. No idea where he got that from. I've never liked ribs. So anyway, we are at Outback, and I'm enjoying my steak, and he has plate of ribs and fries. He is probably about 6-7 years old. He asks me what kind of animal my steak comes from. I answer cow. He asks me where his ribs come from. I honestly don't know if they're pork or beef. I don't like ribs, so I just tell him I'm really not sure, but it's either cow or pig. I think it's cow, but it might be pig. So he gets this kinda confused look on his face, and almost looks disappointed for a minute. So I ask him what's wrong. Oh, nothing. I just kinda thought they came from people. This guy had been eating ribs for 3+ years thinking that he was a cannibal, and was happy about it. On the plus side, when he acts up now, age 9, I jokingly threaten to send him to the butcher so they can have his ribs. Reminds me of a Calvin and Hobbes strip where Calvin asks if hamburgers are made out of people from Hamburg, and on learning the meat comes from cows, decides that he can't finish his burger. When he was 7 or so, and came out of his room ready for school with his polo shirt on inside backward, with the collar popped. It was in his face but he just kept trying to talk and drink his milk around it. When last summer, he's 10, we took a trip to Chicago, we are in Michigan, and he asked me what language they spoke in Chicago. Chitownese. I explained and Gunga Gilunga means hello. Come on, I couldn't pass up this opportunity. When he was small and I told him not to go with strangers, even if they had candy, and his reply was, wait, they might have candy. So many examples. When he said he was hit by Cupid's sparrow. Flighty little bird, but he gets the job done. My brother was 14 before he learned the months of the year. Even worse, my sister is 16 and still doesn't know the months of the year in order. My brother didn't even know when his birthday was when he was a lot younger, maybe 12 or so. My mum would wake him up every now and then and say, "Guess what day it is?" To which he'd reply, "Is it my birthday?" And she'd reply, "No, dumbass, it's Tuesday." Came home and saw a large rolling trash can in the middle of the driveway. Walk over and look in. My son is in there, folded in half, but touching the bottom of the can, feet and arms straight up. After we slowed down laughing enough to speak, we asked him why. He told us he wanted to see if he could get out by himself. When no one was home, he'd been in there a while. We got him out, but not before we took pictures. He was about 16 yo. When he was little he used to stick his fingers up his nose and hum. Apparently he liked the way it made his brain vibrate. Once he got a penny stuck up his nose. He was 18. He was wondering if it would get stuck. I can't stop laughing at he liked the way it made his brain vibrate. My brother, when he stood up from his high chair, with the tray taken off, put his feet across it so he was standing, threw his arms in the air, and jumped. He made no attempt to stop himself. He just leaped and slammed face first into the ground. He was fine, and I very quickly went from "Oh my god, are you okay?" to "You dumbass." Not a parent. When I was 16-17, I read online you could smoke nutmeg and get high. Figured it was legal enough since my mom was against marijuana at the time, so I figured, what the heck. I was home alone and gave it a shot. Rolled about 2 TSPS in copy paper and fashioned myself a joint that looked like Helen Keller got her hands on. Took about a puff or two and decided to wait to let it kick in. Decided to do more research and see how long it takes to effectively kick in. As it turns out, if you smoke enough it can be poisonous. Immediately I start panicking and decided to call my mom and tell her that I might be dying. She calls 911 and I'm on the phone as I wait for them to arrive to her location. They get there and she explains to them what happened. They burst out laughing as they explain that it takes an enormous amount to have any effect on you whatsoever. This story always gets brought up around friends or SOs that I bring over. I've claimed the title of the terminally stupid child in the family and am holding on strong. TLDR. Smoked nutmeg and copy paper in an attempt to get high while mom was out. Had a panic attack and gave the EMTs a hella good story. I'm dumb child. I was a kid trying to do a magic trick with my brother. I threw a penny up in the air and when I looked up my mouth opened and it slid down my throat. It didn't make it to my stomach and was stuck in my airway, so I was having trouble breathing. Went to the hospital and got a balloon shoved down my throat. Anytime they blew it up to try and pull the coin up I couldn't breathe. Anyway, it finally comes up and they put it next to me. My head is down and I'm gasping for air and somehow swallow it again. Round 2 was worse and the doctors were much less gentle. It's like someone was playing Sims with you trying to kill you lol. You have been visited by the Doggo Beer Master. Comment delicious so you always have beer in your life, like and subscribe you magnificent person.